Yo, what's up guys? I'm Raga.
And I'm Sean Bennett with North Kiteboarding and Mystic.
And today we're gonna kick off a new series where we take things back a notch and we go back to big air basics, which is your thing, right man?
Back to the basics. I mean, I like kite loops and everything big, but when it's really windy, you wanna make sure you're getting the most out of your gear by doing the proper techniques. And in previous videos, we've talked about how to go huge, how to really prime your kite and load it up with your edge, letting the bar out, being powered. Today, we're gonna bring in back rolls and front rolls, which is really the foundation to every trick. I like kite loops. Eventually, you want to do back roll kite loops, late back rolls, boogie loops.
Yep.
Freestyle.
Yeah, it all crosses over every discipline. It all comes back to these fundamentals. I think we can probably talk about what the differences are, what you're doing that's different when you're going for like a normal back roll to the big air back roll, and everything you guys need to know. So let's get into this one.
So we're just going to talk about the basics of going bigger on your front rolls and back rolls, and that all starts with priming your kite, load and pop. You always want to have the good amount of speed. You never want to be going too fast where you're going to sacrifice your edge. So sometimes if you just slow down just a tad, you can really dig that edge in and then start to let your bar out a little bit, as we talked about in previous videos. Really get your front lines loaded and letting the bar out to have the canopy open up like, because when you let the bar out, your kite goes actually fills up with wind. So depower, power is the wrong word. Sheet in, sheet out are really the best words, because when you sheet out, you're actually letting the kite fill up with wind. So now that you let the bar out and you're edging harder, now you should be powered up and lit pretty good with the bar out like 3/4 of the way. So once you feel that, you're gonna send the kite. And because the bar is out most of the way, it's gonna stay on the edge of the window, giving you more height instead of distance on your jump. So to progress that into the back roll, you want to think about the edge you're doing once you're leaving the water. And it's kind of like a little Nike check. If you're into wake saw or ride the cable park, those guys pop by edging away, creating tension. So the same thing with the kite. As your kite's going up and about to hit 12 o'clock, you're going to be creating lift. So once the kite hits 12 o'clock and you're edging away, really easy way to think about it is try to ride away from your kite and press hard on your back foot as it's hitting 12. So once the kite hits 12 and you're riding away, the line gets to the end of its stretchiness and tension, and there's nowhere else to go but up. But once you leave the water, what's different with a regular jump and then the back roll? And back rolls are really cool and helpful, and often the trick that people are learning first, and it really makes sense to be your first trick because your rotation is going the same way as the pop. For a back roll here, I'm going to send the kite to 12 as we talked about, and I'm going to slowly edge away from the kite, pressing all my weight onto my back foot and lifting up on the front leg, eliminating the weight on the front of the board. So when you do that, your board naturally is going to drive up wind, and you're kind of swooping the board off the water to have it break free from the water. So the difference is back roll compared to big jumps. Now you're pretty powered up and you're oversending the kite just slightly, as we talked about before, to get that extra height. So now when you're leaving the water, you're thinking about how to initiate your rotation, but you don't want to just forget about your hand positions either. Because if you're going in the rotation and you forget about what your hands are doing, it's very easy to pull too much backhand, do accidental kite loops, or just oversend the kite and leave it off to the side at like 1 or 2 o'clock too much. Because the idea is, if you're jumping to the left, we're starting at 10 o'clock, edging, get the kite ready, send the kite to 12 is okay, but when you oversend it just past 12 to 1 or so, you're gonna actually get a little more height. And the best part and most important part about this is your kite is off to the side, ready to come back across 12 again. So oversend it past 12, then you're gonna get 2 times the loft, because when you bring it back for the down loop, you're coming across 12. So that's better for the back rolls and big front rolls. But as you're going in your rotation, what's more important is what your hands are doing. So you might be a little disoriented, backwards, upside down, whatever, but it's important you can't forget about what your hands are doing. So in your mind, even if you're a little confused, you know that you always oversend the kite a little bit. So you just initiated this input with your backhand and left the water. You really don't need your backhand anymore. Once it passes 12, I can keep my backhand on the bar, but I'm making sure that I'm not pulling too hard. It's just resting there. So if I have a little bit more front hand pressure, naturally the kite's gonna come back across the top. The front hand is doing all the work for me. The fact that only your front hand is on the bar, you're only gonna have the kite going where it needs to be. Keeping your backhand on, and I'm not saying you always have to take your hand off, But when you are airborne, boom, 12 o'clock, I'm up, I feel that I'm halfway through my rotation, goodbye backhand. Your mind should be on, even if you're just in your head going front hand, front hand, front hand, front hand, you're gonna land more because you know to have slightly more pressure on the front hand. You don't wanna be pulling too hard on either side. The biggest crash for back rolls is accidental kite loops, too much backhand, or too much backhand and then not enough front hand afterwards. So you can oversend the kite, it hangs out at 1 or 2 and then you drop. So you wanna make sure you're going over here and then back. It's like a push-up, like 1 repetition is back and then across to where you started. Because that second level of loft coming across 12 o'clock is really the best thing. So the other thing is really going into your rotation with too much force. You don't need to go in for a massive rotation. That's gonna cause over-rotating, landing backwards. Switch your awareness to your front hand, which is just gonna help everything. When you come out of it, your kite's probably coming back across 12 o'clock perfectly. And then now you can spot your landing and really initiate the down loop with your front hand. So say if you're going like 20 feet high or so, you may only need to send the kite once and then send it back across for the down loop, which is gonna be with your front hand. But a lot of times when you start going higher, you're gonna need to work the kite a lot more. So you may start at 10 o'clock riding to the left, you may send the kite back, and then once you come out of your back roll, you're gonna send the kite forward again, noticing that you're still super high up. So then you're gonna swing past the kite and do a backhanded heli loop. So when you go really high on the smaller kites, it's a lot of fun because you get way more action flying the kite. You know, like 12 meters and 10 meters, they're kind of the perfect speed to send it and then bring it back. But when you're lit on a 7 or an 8, you spend a lot of time flying the kite because you never wanna let it hang off to the side for too long. So real quick recap, gonna work for my power, let the bar out, get lit, boom, send it as it's hitting to 12 o'clock. I'm already leaving for the rotation. Now I noticed that I went pretty big, so I have the kite sending it forward, and it'd be a little dangerous to down loop it from over here, especially if I'm still 15 or 20 feet high. So now I'm gonna bring it back across the apex for a second, for actually a third time, because it goes across once, goes across second, and then it comes across the third time for the landing. So with these boosts, when it's really windy and you're going extra high, you definitely need to incorporate front loops, heli loops, or back loop heli loops as well to land soft.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna jump in here as well. We're gonna talk about the landing. So I've done a ton of tutorials on the back roll and the front roll. And I think something we never like really broken down is for a lot of those tutorials, I'm doing beginner tutorials. So when I'm talking about a back roll, I'm usually like talking about something where you're like maybe like 10 feet off the water. We're not going like 40, 50 feet.
Yeah.
And in a lot of videos, this is something people always ask about. And I talk about how you really want to pull hard on that front hand. You're sending the kite forward. You're landing with some power, and you can get away with that when you have a 10-foot drop. Not that big of a deal. But when you're doing like the big air stuff, yeah, you got to get that. You got to get that that down loop or that heli loop, and you got to time it where you're not too high when you're hucking the front loop. Otherwise, you're going to have to do that heli loop and kind of soften things up, which I think weirds some people out.
So yeah, once you start boosting a little bit higher, like 20 feet plus, you're really going to need to incorporate some heli loop, back loop, heli loop landings to land super smooth.
Dude, appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
If you guys found this video helpful, hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll catch you guys later.
And don't forget to subscribe to Sean Bennett's YouTube channel as well.
See you guys
on the water.